Hello,
Oh,
everyone.
the spa. Where's my cucumber water? I haven't heard the new music yet. I'm sorry. It's very funny.
I know. I liked the dancing music that they used to have. Hey, everybody. Welcome to this week's podcast broadcast of This Week in Science. Yes, we are here ready to talk about science all evening with you. That's right. The sweet sounds of science guiding you through this meditation on life and why. Anyway, everyone, this is the pre-show that gets edited out. As you know, this is the time where we ask you to please share and like and do all the things that get us into the algorithms because we like that rhythm. And if you can help us make sure that people know things are happening right now, that we're talking science, that is great for everyone. Also, if we... Oh, am I on the wrong mic? I'm hearing my mic. It's not my mic. Thank you. This is the pre-show. This is what we do in the pre-show to make sure.
This is where all of the editing blunders happen.
Be.
And then it's all smooth sailing with no mistakes from here on out.
I know. I've got my speakers. It says it's using this mic.
Yep.
Which is the one. Am I quiet again?
Did it sync maybe? Maybe it's a little farther from your face than normal. Is that possible?
Now it's closer to my face.
That sounds better. Actually. Yeah.
Thank you. I just need to remember to get right up in it.
I always start the show like this, like right in the mic.
And then you end the show like this. Yeah, we all knew.
I don't want extra roomy here. I want just to be here with you now. So everyone, this is the part that's getting edited out, and our podcast wonderfully is edited in case we make things happen with microphones or video or internet that we don't want, or with words that we don't want included. And so, you can subscribe to the podcast if you want the fully edited version, or you can be here now with us. Oh, now it's too loud. Okay.
No, it's fine.
I disagree.
It's fine.
I disagree. I'm sorry,
sounds
Paul.
good from here.
Now
you sound the same
Paul
volume.
Disney just turned his volume up really loud because he couldn't hear you in the
bit.
beginning.
No, I turned
and now it's like, oh guys, now
everybody talk at once. Ready, go.
1, 2, 3, everybody.
No, everybody. Okay, let's do this show thing that we do. You ready to go? Ready to start it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do this show that we're here to do. Woohoo! As you might notice, maybe a little bit slap happy. Starting the show in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 1014, recorded on Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. Science! You get what you pay for. Hey everyone, I am Dr. Kiki, and tonight on the show we will fill your head with animal animosity, porpoiseful poetry, and toddler town. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. The following hour of programming contains scientific material. While currently still legal, at the time of this recording, who even knows anymore? Anyway, regardless of what weirdness is still to come, science from somewhere will continue here on This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I wanna learn everything. I wanna fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I wanna know what's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science. What's happening, what's happening, what's happening this week in science.
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again on a Wednesday evening to talk about science with you all. There is so much out in this world that is still being discovered. So let's have a conversation about the good things in life, the curious things in life. Like everybody's wondering, what'd y'all bring to the show tonight?
Oh,
I know it's a great question, right? I have science stories about science understanding, tiny life, purposeful poetry, as I mentioned in the intro, tiny town brains, and where does consciousness come from? Do we even know? What'd you bring, Justin?
I've got a healthy gut fungus.
Oh dear.
That's good.
I have a menstrual vaccine story. Brain computer back to brain back to computer interface.
Big
And striking intelligence of Neanderthals.
striking. Is that like
That means they were really good at hitting. Is that what?
I know, I'm like, is that
Yeah.
like striking? A striking
Yeah, it's
pose?
about napping.
Oh.
It's about like making stone tools. It was a
Not
play-
napping. We'll get
about
to
Not
it
napping,
later.
it's napping.
Oh.
Yeah. We'll get to it later,
right.
everyone. All this and more coming up with Blair. What'd you bring?
I was
the
gonna
animal
say
corner?
anyway. I brought honeyguides with a score to settle. It's a type of bird, by the way. I brought waving cuttlefish, and then I also brought ancient shrimp. Alive today.
Oh, what? All right.
Tonight at 11.
Hopefully before 11 as we get into our Type 90
Ancient shrimp.
program.
And what you need to know to be safe. At 11.
Ancient shrimp, are they lurking in your fridge tonight at 11?
Oh, no! That is no! Oh, Blair.
How old is too old for shrimp? The answer may save your
Millennia?
life.
If the best if used by date is more than 1,000 years, you should just direct that directly to the local, I don't know, sedimentary layer
Tonight at 11.
tonight at 11. Okay, too much fun already. All right, we are going to
I
get
have to ask, okay, one more derailment. Is that a reference that people don't understand anymore, tonight at 11? Or is that still relevant?
We have to ask our chat room. I think our chat room would
Because,
know.
like, if you're Gen Z and you grew up in the age of streaming and you never watched normal TV, do you understand that reference or not? Because I'm just realizing maybe you don't. Sorry.
They would have
Let's
watched
do an
it at
actual
their
show.
grandparents' house, right?
Yes.
Gen Z gets old TV at the boomer house.
Yeah, sure.
Is that how it works? Young millennial.
Yeah, all right.
The kids are-
Fair.
Okay, thanks, chat. Yeah.
All right, interesting. I don't know. I'll have to ask around the office tomorrow. I work with a lot of Gen Z folks.
I think this is a good survey to take.
Results
Survey
I'm
next
so
time.
lost. I'm so lost with the generations. I don't even know what that means.
We'll talk about that later, maybe.
Yeah, at 11.
Later.
11:30.
Oh my gosh.
Two-parter.
That's where
Tonight
the
at
show
11
is
again
going.
tomorrow at 6 a.m.
No, we're not here tomorrow. We're here today, right now. As we jump into the show, I want to remind you that subscribing to TWIS wherever you find your podcasts is the best way to get science in your ears every single week. If you're finding us right now on one of the streaming video sites, YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch, you can subscribe to us, hit those notifications, make sure you see us, hear us. Every single week, we're going to be talking about this stuff, well, as much as we can. If you want show notes, other great things, go to TWIS.org. That's where we also have links to our Zazzle store, our Patreon community. TWIS.org. That's where it's at. But right now, it's time for the science. You ready?
Let's bring it.
Okay, let's bring it. I brought Little Teeny Tiny Life. Little teeny tiny life. This story, thanks to a link on Facebook from Dr. Jonathan Eisen, who's a genomicist, microbial genomicist at UC Davis, who's been on the show a few times, and I always enjoy talking with him. But he shared this link to a new study published on the preprint server, BioRxiv. So, what does preprint mean, everybody? Not peer-reviewed. It's been printed. People are looking at it. They're getting ready. They're putting it out there, basically getting all of the feedback so that they can really make a good publication for people who like to pay for publications. Hopefully it'll be open journals. But this story, titled "A Cellular Entity Retaining Only Its Replicative Core, Hidden Archaeal Lineage with an Ultra-Reduced Genome." What is this story? What is the story it's telling? Well, researchers Yuji Inagaki and Takuro Nakayama have published in their work in BioRxiv of a sample of archaeal bacteria that they were able to find and identify the genome of the tiniest archaebacteria. It's what we'd call a bacteria, single cell life form, an archaeon, which is like old stuff. It's our single celled forefathers, with a tiny genome of only 238 kilobase pairs. This is less than half, according to their abstract, less than half the size of the smallest previously known archaeal genome. And it's from a dinoflagellate-associated microbial community. The question is, how does this organism exist? Well, it needs other organisms to exist. Basically, everything that it has is like the opposite of what a virus would have. Viruses have instructions to copy themselves over and over and over again using a host cell's functionality. So a virus goes in and goes, "Oh, thank you for all your replication tools. I will use them and make lots of copies of myself and cause trouble." A virus cannot replicate on its own. This bacteria, basically all it can do is replicate on its own, but it can't survive without other bacteria.
Yeah, I was going to say it's
have a symbiosis with.
It has to be a symbiote because you shed off things that you're no longer using, and so that's how it could get pared down to something so small.
And so beyond that, additionally, it is a massively branching like tree of or phyla that has never been identified before. And what it suggests is that it's a leg of this archaeal lineage. A lot of archaebacteria we think of as extremophiles. This is kind of extreme in the sense that it needs other bacteria or other archae to be able to survive in the first place. It's very possible that this is is this one of the first? How does this lineage compare to viruses? And in terms of minimizing the genetic information that is necessary to propagate, I keep hitting my microphone this year. The genetic information to propagate and exist in the world and to still exist in the world. What is life? Is a virus alive? It can't replicate on its own. This bacteria can't live on its own. It really kind of blurs that boundary of how we identify aliveness.
It also is making me immediately question the thing I blurted out earlier, which is symbiotes. You can kind of tell them by their genome because they're missing a lot of core components, because once you're a symbiont for a long time, you don't need them anymore. So you sort of stop using this genetic information and it, floofs off. And then you're just smaller genome because you didn't need it because you're a symbiont.
Don't say floof in a room or foof in a room full of chemists. But anyway, okay.
But what if life started this way? What if life started with a bunch of little things that couldn't make it on their own, and all were working together as a team all the time, and then in the opposite of
It's like
symbiosis,
Voltron. I'll be the arms. I'll be the legs. I'll be the reproduction unit.
Wait a second. So this is a kids show, so I tell you what, we're gonna have you suit up, but we're gonna keep you off
Voltron
screen
after hours, huh?
the whole time.
That's right.
So yeah, but like I don't think it had occurred to me that instead of having a fully functional singular cellular life form that then pairs down to fit in with the crowd, you could just have a community that's built up roles within the community, and then eventually maybe lasting partnerships weave out of that as the single cell independent life form.
Right. And you could imagine that over time, now we see things like the chloroplast or the mitochondria as like these, unique things. And oh my gosh, but really it was always smushing different units together to allow functionality within a space, right? Within a potentially, a little hollowed out bubble of solute within clay, or at this point in time they had membranes, but it's at a certain point in time, if they're working together creating the things, the symbiosis, at what point, when does symbiosis stop being symbiosis and become just a tissue or a new cell, right?
I don't know. I don't think so. But I also always thought that viruses were alive. So, so this debate is, I think it's important to have, but I also feel like it's kind of lost on me because I've always thought viruses are alive. So of course these bacteria are alive too. I think that if you go with the symbiosis as an argument for them not being alive, that's tough because there are full-on animals that require other organisms to reproduce.
Yep.
So
it is, it's a spectrum, right? It's like, this is the long tail, and we're looking at, not just viruses, but now these archaeobacteria. It's like, how pared down can they be? And at one point in time, it was all just chemical soup, and it was chemical reactions, the stuff that we can do in test tubes or in laboratories. But those things got and they got more and more complicated, and suddenly they're in a bubble together. Suddenly they're bubbles next to each other. Suddenly they're like, I put myself in a little membrane. Woo! And then they're bumping membranes and they're horizontally transferring, and oh my gosh.
So I'm not trying to be insufferable here.
No, I know you're not, but I'm just,
Why does it matter? Why does it matter if it's life or not? Because this is why I'm asking. Because once again, this is because we like to categorize things. And everything is a shade of gray. And so at some point you have to draw a line, yes and no. And there's always going to be those very similar shades of gray right next to the line that you drew.
I think it's important to talk about the shades of gray and to acknowledge how we're categorizing and how there are outliers and how we're taking something that, they clump there, but there are these others, whatever, we have to acknowledge that. I think we should talk about the shades of gray, but talk about this is the way that we're doing it right now, because this is what we know. But at the same time, why does it matter? And it's very human centric, but it is us looking at what we think of as what made it possible for us to be us, for any life on our planet to evolve into complexity like us, that's conscious like us, that we think about. And it's hard to imagine that chemical reactions just on their own are that.
Right.
And so if you're looking out at space and looking at gas clouds or exoplanets or solar, other solar systems, galaxies, what are you looking at? And can you look at it and go, I think there could be something like us there.
That's the answer I needed, actually.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I needed to hear. It's because we need to come up with a solid category so that we can look for it elsewhere, and so we can help define how it happened here, right? And I think that's the piece of this conversation that I need to zoom out for every once in a while is, okay, but it's kind of arbitrary. Why do we even care? That's why we care, and I'm back in. Because that's what I needed to hear. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, because there is that big why, and then there's like well, let's figure out if there's more stuff we can categorize, because that's fun. I mean, my son liked lining up little race cars and trucks at the toy store.
Yeah.
Okay, that was great for a while.
Well, that's how our brain works, right? Like that's how our brain grows from when we're teeny tiny little humans, is by categorizing things. That's how we mature. That's how we learn new things, is by figuring out what things are like, and is this not like. So I understand that. I understand that's like the fundamentals of how our brain works. But that is the problem with the universe, is that nothing is cut and dried.
No. Yeah, isn't it great to be a human in this very messy universe? I want answers. Well, you can't have them, really. I mean, I'll try, but okay. Anyway, I really love this story, and I hope we hear more about this Sucuna archaeum mirabile, the newest discovered, smallest archaea out there. And it'll be interesting to see where the study goes, and if if it makes it to publication, and if anything changes on the way there since this preprint. I think that's going to be a very interesting thing to see as well. Justin, what you got?
Is it time for the gut fungus?
Did I just say what you got? I mean, is it time for the gut fungus? Is now the moment?
So, this is researchers at Peking University. They've discovered a filamentous gut fungus, Fusarium fuentans, can reverse metabolic dysfunction of the liver in mice. It's really interesting because this
that sounds great.
Gut fungus is a normal resident in the human gut.
How do I make more of it?
Yeah. So they were looking at basically a fatty liver disease, and apparently, according to this, approximately 25% of adults are affected by it globally. And they were looking through gut microbiota, previously in previous studies. You're finding all these biotic helps, but there's this fungi that they discovered in some of the gut ecosystem in the liver that they don't know why it's there or what it's doing. So they went and collected feces samples across China from 5 different regions and cultured out this fungus. And then had mice that were, of course, were given fatty liver disease and ones that weren't. And then they had some that were given this fungus and some that were prevented from having this fungus. And basically, the ones that didn't have the fungus got liver disease, and the ones that had liver disease that they didn't have the fungus that they gave the fungus to reversed the liver disease.
It's a mighty important fungus.
It is, and it turns out this is slightly symbiotic. This is a fungus that really can't live with oxygen. It has to be, it's evolved to live inside of a human. It's a microbiome fungus. It belongs there. It's not supposed to be anywhere else. Whenever I hear about these things, too, then you wonder, how does it first get there?
Yeah.
Oh, it was when they were born. It's been there all along.
From food.
Yeah. But it says the results support a mechanistic function of the Fusarium fuentans metabolite that it was creating that was doing the work. It wasn't just the fungus being there that helped. It was metabolite that was being manufactured by the fungus, which is nice because that means you could actually potentially come up with a treatment based on the metabolite that you could give in drug form, as opposed to having to give everybody gut fungus.
Or since
Although-
it's a metabolite, like, can you take a supplement? What food could you eat? Like, what is it a metabolite of? And how does it need the fungus to make the metabolite? Is that the thing?
Yeah, that's the thing. So it's
get your smoothie with an extra shot of gut fungus in it.
Yeah,
So what you do is
FFC1 ameliorate MASH.
Well, it's something with the wonders
Sounds
of
yummy.
pharmaceutical manufacturing could be potentially created in very large numbers for the masses. So if 25% of people have the same problem, that number sounds too high to me. But if that's the case, here's a way to do it. You've got a gut fungus that's already doing the job that you may have interfered with by accident, which is why you're getting sick in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but that's going to be the next stage of this study, or several ones down the line, right? Is to actually test people's microbiome and see if there is a correlation between a lack of the fungus and a presence of the fatty liver disease.
And I'd love to know, like, is this this fungus, is it something that you'd find like in the hunter-gatherers, in the tribal groups that we're looking at in their microbiome, or is it unique among some people in Western culture? How often does it show up? And, what kind of dietary habits? Is it like, is a Mediterranean diet like really great for having this fungus?
Again, the
how do you
Mediterranean
do it?
diet is just food.
It is, I know.
It's-
That's I would.
it's
There was
always
a little
compared-
hashtag S.
Against a highly overly produced food, processed foods. So it always looks good in those comparisons, but it's just food, and that's why it's healthy. So this is what do you call it? Anaerobic? Is that the one where you can't breathe air?
But that's in the gut. So it's
Because it's in the gut.
It's kind
But
of normal.
but the genome shows that it is adapted to anaerobic environment. So it's not going to be like out on the produce or anything. It has to be in something maybe that you eat. Right? Like you'd have to eat maybe a live animal.
Ooh, like
There's
a fecal
often
supplement.
contamination. There's often contamination, especially of produce, from fecal and other things. But
Everybody
also,
wash your vegetables.
yes, but also there's the entire relationship. You asked where does it come from? There's this whole seeding of a baby's microbiome from their parents and the floor that they're crawling on, and when they stick their hands where they shouldn't be, and all that kind of stuff is part of the reason that babies are sick all the time. But but that's the seeding, right? And so a lot of the times these anaerobic funguses, they don't die the second they hit the air, right? There's a period of time where they can survive, or they could even dry out and then be made wet again and then still revived. There's lots of ways for them to kind of seed. I'm immediately reminded of the fact that this is a little off topic but related, that baby koalas, they actually eat their mother's poop when they're very little and still in the pouch, and that seeds their microbiome to be able to process eucalyptus.
Yeah, lots of animals, rabbits, others.
Yeah.
Coprophagy is fairly common and important.
And it's often for this, it's to seed the microbiome.
Yeah. And I did say Western diet, even though this is geographical areas within China where they got their samples. I was, of course,
Well, I thought
Western
the point that
centralizing things.
Yeah, but the way you said it, it made sense, because you said, wonder if this is unique in the Western diet, because they went to 5 regions and cultivated it in China, so it seems like it's everywhere there. So it could be unique in the Western. That's what I thought you were saying.
That's it. Yeah, that's I just wanted to make clear that I wasn't trying to completely do that. But yeah.
We'll have to get used to this, though, because
Yeah. Yes, less and less studies out of the United States, more and more studies out of
Why am I
everywhere
laughing?
else,
This
so.
is like the worst thing.
Yeah, it's not. People are going to
really-
die.
I'm really,
So it's
really
not.
glad
It's not actually that
publication-
funny. It's very sad.
Quick
I
side note
wanna-
that we can edit out, but we might have a bird flu pandemic while having an anti-vaxxer in charge of the health and people who don't believe in vaccines in the majority of the country. And, like, this is like the perfect storm.
And I really, really need everyone to be aware of his group that keeps an eye on stuff there and kind of voice back against the information that they are putting out into the world. The Children's Health Defense group, they've got all sorts of stories that are just flipped just to their ideas of autism and anti-vax stuff and the harm that everyone, the studies that we talk about that are like so clear to us, they take and they go, and they just, and then they're the people who subscribe to the newsletter and go to their website, they're totally happy. So I think, keep an eye on what's going out there, everyone, and be aware of the messaging that's happening elsewhere, because you might need to have a conversation that, compassionately debunks some of that misinformation, or maybe firmly, compassionately debunks, respectfully.
Irreverently?
No. All right, Blair, I need some animosity right now.
Oh, great. So honeyguides. They're in Africa. They're birds.
They're like birds that are like, come on, bears. I mean, there's no bears in Africa, but come on, get the honey.
Yes. So often they lead humans to beehives full of honey if they're given a reward of beeswax afterwards.
Okay.
There are anecdotal accounts.
Is that right? Is that a real thing?
Yes, that
You have
suggests.
a
called honey
honey
guides.
tracking bird? That's so
Yes.
cool. I didn't know that's how they got their name. That's totally rad.
Yeah, so they're anecdotal accounts that suggest that sometimes the birds will lead humans to deadly animals instead of to honey. And the locals believe
That's right.
that it is a retribution behavior for providing insufficient rewards for their honey hunt.
Wow.
You need to be giving the birds what they're due, just like science communicators.
Isn't that
so
what happened at SeaWorld? Like,
No.
No.
Yeah. The killer whale, who apparently had a history,
Tangent.
no, it isn't though. Hang on, I just want to say, missed the treat. Like, they didn't give the reward. It was like a bad handoff between trainers, and it didn't get the fish it was supposed to get, and came back and asked for it again, and got told to leave, and that's when it turned violent. So, if you train an animal, understand, you have just made a contract that you will have to pay for with your life. You don't.
Potentially. So, a trio of researchers from institutions in Africa explored this hypothesis that honey guides in Mozambique lead humans and human hunters to dangerous animals as punishment for not giving them a proper reward. The researchers accompanied locals on several hunts to determine why birds did this. They, of course, thought, there's no way this is actually happening. These birds are not exacting revenge, especially after a previous hunt. It could be hours, it could be days. So researchers went on several hunts themselves. They wanted to observe this behavior, try to find an alternative explanation. They found themselves led to non-bee targets 4 times, 3 times to poisonous snakes, or venomous snakes, thank you, and the 4th to a dead primate. So...
A dead primate. Hey, look at
Yes.
you. This could be you, too.
Right. And so the birds use the same calls when identifying bee colonies as they did for these snakes or the dead primate. And they swoop down in the same fashion to indicate where they should look.
Can you hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent. So they believe that the targeting of the snakes and the primate was deliberate. But they don't think it was necessarily retaliatory. It's more likely that they were making a mistake. Or, on the flip side, that they were trying to be helpful by alerting the humans to the presence of the snakes, which is also a crazy idea. But the problem is that
Look out.
all 3 of the venomous snakes were out in the open and very easy to see. They were not hidden. So if you were trying to lead a human to get bit by a venomous snake, you'd go, put your hand in there. They wouldn't go, hey, look at that mamba on the floor. Whoa, man. So, tough. Really tough to tell what's going on. Because it's not even like they're like, oh, I could have sworn there was honey, or I don't know. No, they went like right here, right here, right here, and it was a snake.
What happened to your human? I don't know. I've seen other things eat these legless, wingless creatures. Oh, the snakes? Yeah, those ones. I pointed it out, and the human approached it like they were going to eat it, and then they just laid down.
So to the birds, what's the difference between the bees, which might sting them, and something that, as a hive can act as a colony versus, I don't know, a puff adder?
So I think actually this is really interesting. Kevin Reardon in the chat says they wanted the snakes killed by the humans. So that's possible. They were saying, can you get rid of this, please? Check out this dangerous snake. Can you please get rid of it? So I don't...
I love the sounds of this communication.
Anyway, how's that for a symbiotic relationship with, I don't know, a struggle?
It sounds like they've trained humans.
But if you bring back up that data sheet there, it shows that it looks like they hit honey most of the time. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, they hit honey more times than not. So it's more than 50% to bees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they got more than the same call for everything. They got more than 50% going to bees.
Okay.
I would think
good.
I think if it's over, like
numbers.
usually it's like if it's over 50%, you're kind of like more than chance. So a chance is kind of like I mean, it could be a mistake, but
for this, you have to remember that would be if it was 2 choices, honey or snake. But those aren't the 2 choices. It's the
honey
entire
or snake,
world.
or honey badger or
so it's honey or snake or tree or rock or elephant, like it's literally anything. Yeah. So the fact that they're hitting the bees at all, to me, means they know what they're doing.
Yeah. I think there's a logic.
You're going back towards intentional. It's just the motivation is suspect.
I think hitting the wrong thing that often actually could absolutely be chance. It could just be, oops, I thought there was honey here. My bad.
You don't think that bird knows the difference between
a bee and a snake?
A honey hive and a dead monkey?
I think that
look, a puff adder killed this monkey. I'm showing you.
I think that there could have been honey there, or they could have gotten lost. And they basically said, like, I'm done now. What's this? Let's go. I think that working with animals as much as I have, even an extremely well-trained animal does not have 100% success with almost anything. There's occasional mistakes, just like with humans. So I think that it's reasonable that they would... it sounds to me like they gave up. No. And they said, I'm done.
But it was mostly snakes? That was like...
Well, 3 out of 4 times, yes. That's the other problem. The sample size is pretty small.
Dead primate and then just snakes versus bees.
But like, was it, or were they trying to point at something else that was near the snake, but the researchers saw the snake because that was the big thing and it's dangerous? Was there like a spider funnel nearby, or was there, you know what I mean? An anthill.
I get you.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Okay,
I
well, the question
get
I would
you.
have is,
People are
do
biased.
those snakes prey on those birds?
Probably.
But also remember, this
then
is all
it's a warning.
informed by like local lore.
Yes.
So that's the other thing, is that they didn't go in there with no expectations. Then they were like, man, these birds keep taking us to snakes. No, they went in there with the expectation. The locals say the honey catchers lead people to their doom when they're mad. Let's test it.
To your
Right?
doom.
So I think that's the other problem, is that you have the locals that know how to speak to the honey catchers, who are leading you, who are interpreting the honey catchers' actions and sounds.
So
And
these
you
were
have the
mud
researchers
honey
who-
catchers.
They were
These were
what?
mad. They were made mad?
No.
No.
Well,
that
then
was
you
the
have to make them
question, right?
mad and see if they take you to snakes
Right.
every
So
time.
yes. So this needs to be done in a larger number. This needs to be done in a laboratory. This needs
And
to be done with a
intentionally.
binary choice. Then this needs to be done with more than a binary choice. A lot of things need to happen to figure out what's going on here. This was, hey, there's this mythos. Let's check in on it. Right?
And, oh,
It was
hey,
a
there
very
might be
preliminary
something to
study.
it.
I just think it is very funny that we have entire conversations about whether birds are even self-aware, or whether they know each other apart from each other, or if they pay attention to their like all these silly questions about, are birds smart enough? And then over here we're like, they're plotting our demise. Like, okay.
Well, they do, like, crows have facial recognition that can somehow transmit to crows that have never seen the individual, which
Yes,
hasn't
that's
quite been
correct.
explained.
Yeah.
So they have
don't
some sort
trust Justin. He doesn't have the good Cheez-Its.
Actually, no, the crows are very
was
nice to me,
mean.
because I learned that story very young enough in life that I've
Yes.
never crossed a crow.
A crow.
I know
Smart.
better. I know better.
Speaking of traditional knowledge, I had a story that was going to come just a moment later, but I'm just going to jump in right now with it, which is research out of China. Researchers have looked at classic Chinese poems to investigate the range contraction of the Yangtze finless porpoise. So, in order to get a historical perspective on where these porpoises have lived throughout history, the researchers took old poems, and they were like, "Hey, people have looked at like literature to figure out where various plants and animals are. Let's try it with these Yangtze porpoises," and so they used classic Chinese poetry, 724 ancient poems that had references to Neophocaena Asia orientalis, and they infer that over the last 1,400 years that the range has contracted significantly, some 65%.
So that's a poem about porpoises more than every 2 years.
Yeah, so they had 724 poems that referred to this particular species, the Yangtze finless porpoise, since there was the Tang dynasty from 618 to 907, the Qing dynasty, 1636-1912, had the most poems with 477, so that's the majority of them. The Ming dynasty, 1368 to 1644, had 177 of the poems. The Yuan dynasty, 1271 to 1368, had 27. The Song dynasty, 960 to 1279, that had 38. The Tang dynasty had 5. 362 had specific location information related to this porpoise. 78% had them in the main stem of the river, 14 in tributaries, and 8% in lakes. And so they found that basically there was very significant 65% range contraction over 1,400 years, thanks to old poems with
Yeah, and
porpoise.
I'm glad the sample size is so big
It's not
because
little. Yeah, it's like, yeah,
because a couple poems here or there could be nonsense. Like that's the thing about poetry. I could say that there's a sea monster in my tub in a poem, right? And it could be a symbol of something. I could be talking metaphorically. There could be, so having the larger group of poems is really important because otherwise you'd be like, oh, they liked the porpoise. They saw it down the river and they were like, oh man, as if there were a porpoise in this lake, right?
right. I mean, I'd love to know, as they're looking at the poems, what exactly were the words that they knew referred to the Yangtze finless porpoise? What was the specific reference, and why? And was it the same throughout the poetic history? Did it change? Were they looking for metaphoric, or was it specific? So there's aspects of how they analyzed it that I'd love to know more about. But I mean, I love this practice.
I had to go and find it. There's a Minoan wall art. It's super ancient. It might be the first depictions, at least in the Aegean, of dolphins.
Yeah.
They have beaks.
Yes.
They have bird beaks because
Beaked dolphins.
whoever the artist was obviously never actually saw one. So also have to be careful that it, the porpoise poetry didn't just come in fashion, and so then everybody needed to do their rendition.
Well, they did their renditions, but well preserved throughout history, mostly in the Qing dynasty. There's one phrase from the emperor Qianlong of the Qing dynasty. He wrote more than 35,000 poems. And when he traveled to Xinjiang City, he said, porpoises chased moonlight on silvered tides. Sorry, it's just porpoises, because that's the river dolphin. But anyway, moving on from river dolphins to, hey, how do people consider science in the world? There is a brand new survey from the Association of Science and Technology Centers, as we like to call it, ASTC. When you become a member of a museum like OMSI or the Exploratorium or Cal Academy of Sciences, you can also get like a cool connect. If your museum is connected through Aztec, you can get like discounts and entrances to other Aztec museums across the country. So it's an organization that connects museums, science museums, technology centers, and the people who work in them and for them and around them. This study was a quick survey representing it's of 1,017 U.S. adults. It was Edge Research that did it. It was from April 4th to 6th, and they were trying to gauge current attitudes towards scientific institutions and understanding of ongoing changes to federal science policy, which we've been talking a lot about. And so, hey, good news, everyone. People really like science. So the bottom line, they found out that people value and rely on science across the board. And they know they do. But a lot of people didn't really understand that the money that they pay in taxes goes to these federal investments that underlie research that affect their everyday life, like how their money goes to the National Weather Service, to NASA, to NOAA, to these parts, to NIH, to NSF, to organizations that give them information like weather forecasts and severe weather alerts, nutritional information, economic forecasts, public health updates, air quality reports. People, 9 out of 10, use more than one of those types that they looked at least weekly. More than 9 out of 10 are using these things weekly, and they know that it benefits them. But at the same time, 62% of respondents only have a vague awareness of the policy changes and how they are affecting and impacting science and how that's going to change things. And so The call to action really is, we need to talk about how science that is federally funded is used every single day. Dots need to be connected. And so we talk about scientific studies. We don't really talk about where the money came from. They usually grants and stuff are listed on the papers that we're talking about. We could list, say, this was funded by an NIH grant. This is funded by
Well,
the NSF.
we could have.
We can move it. There's still published stuff that might get published. I don't know. But I think it's very, very fascinating. 62%, even though we have a massive majority who are like, yes, science, I like it. It helps me. They don't really understand how policy changes. It's just this vagueness. So,
and then the thing I'm not supposed to talk about during the show is you could also point out that not a lot of states are actually paying more in federal tax than they're receiving, which means if you're in one of those states and you don't like what the federal tax dollars are being spent on, don't worry. You're not spending your tax dollars on it because you're taking more in than you put out. Mm-hmm. So there's not that many states that are actually paying for these things.
Yeah, I think something that we're learning the very hard way is that I think a lot of politicians in the past did not spend a lot of time on victory laps, not to, talk about these are the things that are currently working. This is how the government's funding it. This is how this is a success, right?
The PR stopped once the election ended.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think that
how many people know how successful Obama's funding of sustainable renewable energy actually was? Everyone remembers the stuff that went wrong.
Yes.
No one acknowledges the absolute success that the overall funding was.
And we
are benefiting from that right now.
Even like the COVID vaccine, it was all about opening things back up again, and then it kind of just went away, and nobody talked about all the people that weren't dying as we continued to administer COVID vaccines.
Well, and it's if they're not, it's the problem with vaccines and all the unseen stuff. It's that if people are making it, it just is part of the fabric. It's hard to tell the story of you could have died. You could have died, but I can't really say that because that's not scientific.
Right. But I think also there's just so much that we're experiencing now that we are experiencing because things were a given. You don't take money from public school. You don't take money from medical research. You don't take money from veterans, right? And we're just slowly seeing, you have to actually physically say that and physically stop that because there's no you shouldn't anymore. That's the part. I think nobody fought to campaign for the benefits of medical research because everyone was just like, well, that's cancer research. Everyone's going to fund cancer research. You don't touch cancer research. Well, now we touch cancer research. Like it just... nothing. There was no effort to make sure people knew because it wasn't broken, and so nobody was making a constant line of it's not broken, it's working, let's keep it working.
This is why there was never a deity or a god or goddess or nymph or sprite or spirit in charge of gravity because it didn't change. There was a north wind and a south wind deity that pushed the air this way or that way because you could tell the change. You could feel the change. But gravity, it was always the same no matter where you went.
Yeah.
And so never got a mover, even though it's like the most omnipresent force that we feel on the planet, right? And I think you're totally right. I think the absence of conflict over those things it made it so that we stopped talking and people weren't, calling out the winds. I think we called out the winds for science every week, but I think that if you're talking about on the political level or I think it was definitely missing.
Aztec found that the way people think about infrastructure that enables what we do for research and development and science, the way they think about it probably doesn't match reality. About half believe that corporations, and this is to quote, corporations, foundations, and wealthy individuals would fund scientific research to fill the gap created by federal spending cuts.
Why?
All of it, they're going to fill all. And although 94% of respondents, this is 94%, this is representative of the spectrum, Democrats, Republicans, everybody. Although 94% of respondents use scientific data at least weekly, only 10% are concerned that cuts to federal support for science might impact their access to this information.
It's gravity. It's already there.
Yep.
It's there all the time.
That's what it is. Yes. So this, I think that the second point here about 10%, this is Democrats, Republicans, everyone. As much as we love it, we're concerned. No, only 10% are concerned that their access to information might be constrained, challenged, changed.
Well, it's because they can't picture a world where they go to open the weather app and it says data not found. Right?
Oh my gosh,
that sounds ridiculous.
I need an old movie trailer. Picture a world where you can't know the weather.
Well, also, like, I kind of get it, because, like, why do you need a national weather service when every television and radio station across the country has a weather climatologist person who's there telling the weather all the time? Why do we need a national version when every city has, like, multiple versions? Where did they get all of their information?
Oh my God.
From that one place? That one source?
And who talks about that? Nobody ever talks about that, where the models come from, how the meteorologists use the models, how that forecasting happens.
Can I tell you?
Where does it come from?
Tell you? And I know we don't want to know. It probably will continue, but it will be a charged service. I mean, it's privatization.
Or it'll be woefully inaccurate.
That's the thing. How charged? Who is going to take up the reins of the National Weather Service that relies on NASA, NOAA, and international satellites to be able to, like, do some of the models? The people who work to improve the models. I mean, sure, you can make
there's already a network in place. There are. Listen.
They broke it already.
There's a network blanketing all the populated areas, at least, of old men who had broken bones at some point that healed. That they can feel it. They can feel it when it's going to rain. And so whenever they feel it, they pick up the phone and they dial.
Feels like rain, George.
And they report. Like rain. And then somebody writes it all down and compiles that, and then you get.
Okay. This is the best new weather forecasting model. This is better than the Farmer's Almanac. This is amazing. I love it so much. Okay, well, I'm done with this. People like universities. They recognize them as a trusted source of information and leading contributors to information. They also want it to be free from political influence. Across the board.
Too bad.
Well, I'm just saying this survey is representative of how everybody across the board has commonly held perspectives. Majority. The perspectives that you think are common, they are common. It's just the mental models and the understanding of, like, how it works and how it the dots. We need to connect dots.
So
everybody.
This research is really important, actually, in a year and a half or so. When now people are going to try to get these things back and to get seats back, to make positive change, to get back where we started, not even make new progress, but just get back where we started. This research will actually be really important. And I hope that future politicians will use this information to inform the way that they campaign. Because if 94% of people use these services and they are suddenly impacted. I think this is the catastrophic thing about the current administration that also will eventually hopefully get us out of this mess, is that they're moving so fast and so blatantly that you can't blame it on anyone else. When the weather app fails and nobody knows what the weather is outside, it is one person's fault. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, And if
One
you
throat's a
campaign
joke.
properly,
I don't like my meteorologist.
yeah, if you campaign properly, if you use this information to find the common interests and common values and can use that to your benefit, that could be a huge step towards getting things back to normal.
Yep. Connecting the dots from science, funding, to science, to everyday life. How is it impacting us? How is it going to change? What's been good and how will it go wrong? Justin, what you got?
All right. Well, I'm going to finish out the quick stories.
So quick.
With a quick
Like 90.
story.
Yeah.
This is something that came up on the show, I think, towards the end of the pandemic, once vaccines were showing up. Menstrual phase and vaccine timing. Linked to minor cycle shifts. The international research team, led by Oregon Health and Science University, discovered that post getting a vaccine shot, there are changes to the menstrual cycle if it's in the follicular phase.
What does that mean?
That are kind of insignificant.
That's what we needed to know.
Yeah. Like, even that one was like, there's a slight signal of delay. None in the non-follicular. And it is the part where the sloughing material is regenerating. And that's why they think that it's being affected, because it's an inflammation process, essentially. And when you get additional inflammation, it can interrupt a process that has inflammation as part of its core process. So, but
So what are they saying? They're saying that it's they're not the lining isn't building as thick, or
I don't know that they gave it a mechanical. They were just looking at number of days.
okay.
And those vaccinated in the follicular phase experienced an adjusted mean increase of 0.82 days with the influenza vaccine alone, and 0.99 days with both influenza and the COVID shot at the same time. So the influence was about a day later, and not lasting. So
I'm going to take you from the JAMA study and the data and the way it has been interpreted by the women who did the research and published the study. A male doctor, an internal medicine physician who was who was referred to for the Children's Health Defense article, that this doctor suggests the study's author and the group that published the findings downplayed it, that the fact that 5 and 6% of women in each group had their cycles extended by 8 days is a very significant finding. That means
Extended by 8 days?
Is that what they found? And they say, according to the study, 1,501 women who took either the flu shot alone or both shots together experienced the menstrual cycle increased by a statistically significant 0.4 days or 0.49 days in their first cycle after being vaccinated. Their subsequent cycles were either normal or almost normal. The clinically meaningful group, quote unquote, saw their cycle increase by 8 or more days.
Wow.
And so
my question would be, how regular were they before that?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, it's
what do we know
100%. 100%. We know that menstrual cycles are clockwork. You can almost to the day always, and there's never
Incorrect.
Irregular.
Incorrect.
But this is the mechanism also that you then have to, like, you could follow up with and say, like, do some people experience more inflammation than others? Is it more intrusive than others? It doesn't mean it has changed, and again, they weren't lasting, but it doesn't mean that has changed the reproductive ability of women in any way.
And that is, I think, the main take home, where what they're trying to do is fearmonger that this change has impacted reproductive ability in that 5 to 6% of women, while not significantly affecting it in anybody else, right? We have a clinically meaningful group, but how are they impacted at any point by anything? And if this clinically impacted group, what is happening with their reproduction to begin with? Does clinically impacted mean that it changed their ability to reproduce?
Right. Or is your fertility slightly lowered for the 1 month you get the vaccine, which in that case it would totally be worth it because you get to pass immunity onto your child? Or more likely is it nothing, because 0.4 days does not, like, sperm lasts longer than that. So if the release of an egg is delayed by 0.4 days, even if you're like in fertility treatment, first of all, they test your hormone levels, they test the size of your ovaries, they test the size of the eggs that you're growing, they test everything before they inseminate you. So, like, they're going to test. It's not going to be like, oh, well, it was off, but we wasted it. But also, if it's by 0.4 days, that's not enough to make or break a fertility treatment either.
But it's also if you are part of one cycle, just one cycle. This was not
the one where after you got the shot, so you even know.
It's not even long term. It's just the one cycle.
And it's connected to the shot, so you know when it's happening. It's not like
if you're doing IVF, it's like, don't take a flu vaccine during this period of time, because we know it might impact the length of your menstrual cycle slightly.
But to Pepsi Cola's point in the chat, again, how much is this different from the standard fluctuation for that individual? How long have we tracked their cycles before and after to see what their average fluctuation is?
They never do.
Because 0.4 days, that's nothing.
No.
Nobody's even going to notice that.
No.
Like, I know the 8 days people, they noticed it. And
So
I know there were lots of anecdotal accounts.
3 consecutive cycles prior to vaccination is how they tracked it.
That is not enough.
And they used a digital birth control app.
So that's also a whole thing, because if you are self-reporting.
Yeah. Oh, I started this day. Did I get that right?
You're not sure. Also, like, did you wear black underwear and there was spotting and you didn't even notice? Like, there's so many variables. I'm sorry, is this... Menstruation is real. It's a thing. I'm not going to act like it's gross, because it's not. But
I don't mean it by like gross. But what I'm thinking is, like, I think these people knew they were part of the study. Like, I'm giving everyone who was involved the benefit of the doubt that they were, like, on board with doing this tracking, and that it wasn't just pulled without their knowledge. But maybe I'm wrong.
I think the big take home from this is that, and the reason I wanted to bring up the Children's Health Defense group, which is RFK Jr.'s group, which is, anti-vax and like all sorts of things. I wanted to bring it up in terms of the framing that is being used, and that instead of a over positive framing, they're framing it in the sense of this vaccine, that you shouldn't just give it to women. They're actually saying, hey, one of the scientists they talked to, hey, it's great that they're actually doing research on this, which is true. That's amazing. And we've known for a long time the immune system is tied to the hypothalamic pituitary ovarian axis. So your immune system impacts that stuff. You get a vaccine, that changes your immune system, which can impact that stuff. So this is a hormonal, neurological, like, body system that is impacted by stress, the immune system, a vaccine.
Yeah, that's the other question.
It all
What was the
ties
delay
in.
on your period if you had a cold?
That wasn't part of it. They didn't
But that's
study
the question, right? Like, if it's an immune response and your body's like, oh, better wait a half a day before I drop this egg. I'm not feeling well. It's not a good time to get pregnant. Like, if that's what's happening, that could happen with a cold too.
But if you didn't put that into your tracking app, then that wouldn't be in the data.
Right.
So
self-reporting.
So that would be a great follow-up study.
Yeah.
But and yeah, usually you're doing treatment versus ailment, I guess, at some point. But this one was just vaccine versus a control.
Yeah.
This is one study, and actually I find it very interesting. I think for the large part it is reassuring that there is not a massive impact. I think this is the point where we sit back and go, there are more questions to be asked, and this is the place where it hopefully keeps going if the funding keeps going and we're allowed to do research on women.
Oh, it might not.
With women.
Ha. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I think it's important. Every time I see something that's in the children's health defense, I think I'm going to kind of bring it up for a counteractive framing. Be like, this is what they're saying.
Mhm.
How can, what are we saying? What do we think about that? I think that's important. Hey, everybody. This is This Week in Science. Thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Oh, we are well on our way to a tight 90 first half of the show. If you're loving the show, please share with your favorite people. Please share with the people you want to talk about these issues with. Please share with people who are curious, because we need more curious minds thinking about things and talking about stuff in this world. Come on. Let's dig in. That's what you do here with This Week in Science. If you're enjoying the show, also head over to TWIS.org. Click on our Patreon link if you are interested in helping to support the show and keep us going so that we can buy new cooling fans for the computer that needs to get fixed. So that you can help pay for editing and other things that need to happen to keep the show, not just a wacky, not drama-filled tight 90. No, these are not the words I wanted to say. Anyway, help support TWIS. Click on the Patreon link at TWIS.org. Click on the Zazzle link if you'd like some merchandise. Wave your TWIS flag, or beach towel proudly. Or maybe it's a shower curtain. I don't know, but there's some really good stuff there on the Zazzle store. We can't do it without you. Thank you for your support. All right, everyone. Now we are coming back to more TWIS with Blair's Animal Corner. With Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. You want to hear about animals? She's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
I have waving cuttlefish.
You are waving cuttlefish, or
I wave at cuttlefish every opportunity that I get. Hi, cuttlefish. Some neuroscientists from École Normale Supérieure in France report possible evidence of cuttlefish communicating by waving their arms at one another. Now, right away, I'm going to say, yeah, of course.
Ha!
Prior research has shown that cuttlefish can change their skin color on demand. We know about this and use that ability to communicate. We know all about how their chromatophores make very complicated displays to communicate things to one another or to other animals. They've also been observed moving their arms in certain ways when confronting each other, especially males confronting each other. They have 8 arms. They're not tentacles, they're arms, lined with suckers. They also have a pair of tentacles that are close to their mouth that they can extend out to grab food, pull it in.
Oh,
And
wait,
so
it's not like
yes.
octopuses where they have 8 tentacles
Right.
and 2 of them one is a mating tentacle, and like
Right.
where some of them have they have 10, but 8
Right.
arms, two grabbing.
This is
tentacles.
also squid. Squid also have that.
Oh, cool! I did not know that. Thanks.
Yeah. I wish. Oh no, it's in my little one's room. But I have a stuffed squid that has they have the arms and they have 2 long tentacles coming up. So anyway, the researchers looked at the ways cuttlefish move their arms, which could be a kind of communication. They put several specimens, several cuttlefish in a tank in a lab, and they observed them as they interacted with each other. They videotaped the specimens as they moved their arms. They played those videos back to the cuttlefish to see how they would react. They found 4 waving patterns. Up, side, roll, and crown is what they called them, but basically they're just different waves. They found that the cuttlefish responded by waving back when they saw a real cuttlefish or when they saw a cuttlefish on a video, waving any of the 4 patterns. But this is what's so funny. When they played them upside down, the responses were generally muted. So when it was upside down, hey, like, what are you doing? They also noted that the patterns created vibrational waves, which means they might be communicating in a whole separate way. They're doing the waves, and that's creating water movement that's doing something else entirely. So then they recorded vibrational waves using a hydrophone. They created their own waves by playing them back, and they scrambled them. They played them in reverse order. They found that the cuttlefish would only respond with the original recording. So the waves did mean something. And so it
And the visual specificity of it was important. Kind of like a bird song needs to has to be like the specific song in some species.
Yes. So of course they have a lot more to do to try to figure out exactly what's going on, and they think that they might be able to use some machine learning to help decipher exactly what the different waves mean or what
cuttlefish sign language communication. Nice.
But I mean, I will take this opportunity to remind everyone, bearded dragons wave at each other. Everybody waves, man. If you got arms, you wave.
I mean, if you're a cobra.
Did it get any like halfways? Like, are they waving at me? No.
It's the cuttlefish behind me. I was just, don't worry about it. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, bearded dragons do a full, they kind of stand up and they go, hey. And it looks very cute, but really they're saying, stay the heck away from me, bud. This is my space, right? So, in this case, it was males doing it to each other too, right? So, it's if you have an appendage that you can use to express yourself, you're going to do it. And especially in a cephalopod where they have very advanced communication techniques. If you can communicate via strobe, of course you can communicate via wave, right? So, pretty cool. Oh, let's see some. Absolutely. I love these guys. Look at them go.
The cuttlefish.
So we have the 4 different arm wave signs. I'm going to
Can you hear the audio?
No.
Okay, great.
So we have cuttlefish, the chameleons of the sea, is what the video says. Absolutely.
Fast forward it. I wish I could fast forward it.
We're going to get there. So they have 4 different arm wave signs. The first one is up. So basically they're just doing
they're like this. Arms up. Yeah. Oh, look at my nose tentacle.
Arms up on your head. Then side. So now they're throwing their arms up to their side, curling it up onto their cheek, kind of. Roll. Roll is what you'd picture. It's underneath them. It's like they're curling their arms underneath them. And then crown is where they kind of open up and pull it up in a jerky manner. So it's find the video.
This.
Find our video. Everybody.
I know what your Halloween costume is going to be this year, and I really want to see this Dance Your PhD entry. This is going to be amazing.
Real. Oh my goodness, that'd be amazing. And so yes, so then there's a vibration happening from the arms based on the different types of communications. But yes, these are animals that have complex vision. They have chromatophores to camouflage themselves and make visual cues on their skin. They can change the texture of their body. They can imitate other animals. And yes, they wave their arms in different ways to mean different things. Absolutely. I'm sure it's only a matter of time before we find out that they also make sounds that we've never noticed.
Right. This is just vision and mechanoreception.
Yeah.
But mechanoreception, that is a sound. If there are vibrations,
Right.
that is
Right.
sound in water.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, cuttlefish,
really
they got a
cool.
lot more going on.
They do.
Oh, I'm such a cephal enthusiast.
Amazing.
And then
we need a new
the
generation.
last story for my corner tonight is a little complicated, so you're all gonna have to bear with me for some chemistry, and I'm very sorry. So there's a reason this is interesting. It's about ancient carbon in shrimp. So the carbon cycle. We have an understanding of how the carbon cycle works. Plants, through photosynthesis, grow. Animals eat those plants. They turn that into energy and a source of carbon that they then use to grow. So this is like, life is based on carbon, right? So like, everybody's trading carbon. That's what we're doing. Some animals poop out carbon that other animals eat, or plants pull the carbon from the soil, right? So like, there's the carbon cycle is all about moving this matter with an energy exchange from organisms to organisms. And so the expectation is that the carbon that you find in a shrimp shell came at some point from plants.
Well, you'd
And
think,
so-
like, wouldn't you think it's like they came from what they ate? Like,
Right, so
if
they
the
might
shell is-
eat a zooplankton that
Yeah.
ate a phytoplankton, which is basically a plant, right? So
Because we've done like tissue tests on people, and it's like, oh, look, everybody's eating corn,
Right,
because
exactly.
of carbon-13 to
Yes.
carbon-14 isotopes, and it's
yes. Yes, you can look at the
oh.
isotopes, you can figure out what molecule it all started as, right? Exactly. And so it turns out that shrimp in this Australian river are made out of methane carbon.
Wait, what?
And that's weird. So, yes. Okay. So yes, it's a little bit of a long walk. So come with me.
Take us on a walk, Blair.
So in Queensland's Condamine River, the river rises on Mount, I'm probably saying this
Condamine?
wrong, but it's called Mount Superbus, okay? I don't know
Okay,
if they
good
pronounce
enough.
it
Good
differently,
enough.
but it's spelled Superbus. Okay, which is inland from Brisbane. It flows inland until it meets the Darling River. All of these names are out of control. Get it together,
Darling.
Queensland. Okay, so anyway,
Superbus.
in the Darling River, there's methane bubbles that are coming up through the water column from a natural gas reservoir. Now, remember, we're assuming that all the animals in that river are getting their carbon from plants on land and like the deadfall washing into the river, or phytoplankton and plants that are aquatic from photosynthesis. This is where all of the carbon that then trickles into the food chain that ends up in the shrimp go. But they analyze the carbon in the bodies of zooplankton, insects, shrimp, prawns, and fish. And I will really quickly explain what zooplankton is for the people who might not be sure why I keep talking about these two different kinds of plankton. So zoo means animal, phyto is like light. So basically to talk about like a photosynthesizing thing. So it's basically plant plankton and animal plankton. And so it's the primary producer versus something that eats the primary producer. So phytoplankton, zooplankton. So they tested the zooplankton because that's a second step in the food chain. So they didn't want to look at the phytoplankton because they know where the carbon comes from. In the phytoplankton, it comes from photosynthesis. The zooplankton has to eat something, right? And so then the insects, shrimp, prawns, and fish all of those animals had different carbon signatures, and they could look at the different sources of carbon that make up their food as well. And so what they found was that animals near the natural gas seep had a distinct carbon signature showing that they were eating food derived from natural gas. In fact, mayflies, they had about 55% of their diet coming from methane-based food. Now you're going like, what is methane-based food? It's anaerobic bacteria. So there's methane-eating bacteria in deep sea, and there's all sorts of deep sea research where they see how methane-eating bacteria forms the basis of entire ecosystems in the deep, deep, deep sea, where there's hydrothermal vents of hot water and basically no oxygen. And so methane-eating bacteria form the primary producers of that food chain. And then zooplankton eat the bacteria, and then shrimp eat the zooplankton, and then prawns eat the shrimp, and then fish eat the prawns, right? So the methane-eating bacteria is the primary producer, not plants. And until now, that has not been seen at all in rivers. And so this kind of rocks the entire understanding of how basically the carbon cycle works in a river. Because you have primary producers coming from methane gas.
Which is totally unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder, though, now that you're thinking, we know there are methanogens in other places, in other ecosystems. Yeah, I just wonder how this will change energy budgets for, if it
yeah.
Probably not significantly, but at least a little bit.
The other thing I thought of, though, is if we are siphoning natural gas from ecosystems, are we accidentally removing the primary producers of ecosystems? Are we starving out methane-eating bacteria by pulling natural gas?
Probably to some degree if we're like pulling it all out. But I mean, in terms of where methane is coming from rivers, from the riverbeds, different, the shallows, or from the Siberian tundra, or from, places where we've been like, oh, more and more methane's coming from these places, as opposed to from methane reserves, natural gas reserves in the rocks under the ground.
Which is what I assumed this
would probably
was.
still be there. Yeah. No.
That this would be, there's like a methane gas trickling out that's popping up somewhere in the spring.
Methane is a byproduct of all sorts of stuff. So it's definitely in these freshwater ecosystems.
Yeah, but they specifically have these seeps, which yes, I understand our natural gas harvesting as humans is not going to,
of course,
turn off the natural gas on an ecosystem. But if you siphon out enough that it just creates an imbalance from how things used to be, it's going to change an ecosystem. That's really the thing that I hadn't thought of is if you reduce the flow of methane going into a river, even if it's only by, some percentage points, that is going to change the ecology of that space.
And if you increase the amount coming out of a sink, that will change the ecology of that space.
Yes, absolutely.
It's going to move things, or it could actually move things around more so than change the ecology. I mean, there's the impact on the local, right? But think about it in terms of how it moves.
Yeah. So I've never really thought about this, because it's always broken down to the pretty, unless you're somebody who studies this sort of thing professionally, you really only think about the very basic carbon cycle. That's pretty simple. Just, it's the plants. It all starts with the plants. But in this case, it starts with the methane-eating bacteria.
I love it.
Wild.
So this is the kind of study where it's like the connections between all these different things
Disciplines.
disciplines and also ecosystems and energy, trophic levels that you don't really consider all the time, and it's the web, right? Not the World Wide Web like www dot, but the worldwide ecosystem web.
Yes. Well, and I love the image that you had up, Kiki, because that's the thing that I said to children is young is kindergarten. It's not a food chain, it's a food web. And it's because it takes everything. It's if you remove one piece of the web, the whole thing might not collapse, but it gets weaker. And so there's a very specific balance amongst all these different things. The shrimp aren't 100% methane-based carbon. They're 28% in the shrimp and 19% in the shrimp, 28% in the fish. I kept switching them. But that's
still
a big
lot.
chunk. Yes, absolutely. And the fish is probably because of biomagnification, I would assume. That's why it's higher. But
still.
it's a big chunk. It is not negligible.
No, 18%, that's, it's almost a fifth, right?
And then this is not an anaerobic environment. This is not an environment with a lack of sunlight or a lack of oxygen or a lack of resources. It's a river. It's like a very productive space.
But is that going to be a one-off river? Like this river has a methane source and therefore
maybe
it has
that's the next
bacteria that has evolved there to be living off of that source, and that's how it created a food source? Or do you think this is something that's going to end up translating to lots of rivers?
So the researchers say, until now, we have overlooked the role of methane-eating bacteria, that the role that they play in the rivers. With this knowledge, we can better track the flow of carbon in rivers so we can gauge ecosystem productivity and see how a food web is functioning. So their expectation is that this is pretty widespread.
I love this is the good words. Within the first paragraph of the study, I love, within floodplain rivers, terrestrial derived allochthonous sources of carbon can be abundant, but are often considered more recalcitrant than labile autochthonous sources, which are readily consumed by animals and can contain high-quality molecules essential for animal somatic growth and reproduction.
So
carbon come from plant mostly.
Yeah.
Now come from methane.
This is the kind of thing that gives me makes my heart skip extra beats. Because I get these as assignments where that's I'm like, oh, it's one of those papers where they're going to use every kind of piece of jargon and technical. They're only talking within the room, within the. But they also
barfed
so
up
now
at
I have to
thesaurus
Google
as well.
I have to Google every other word to figure out what the heck this story is. Ugh.
Yeah. It's too much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anywho.
Anyway. Thanks, Blair. That's fascinating.
You got it.
Thank you so much. Hey, Justin. Do you want to talk about something striking or, I don't know, maybe the interface of things?
So I think I had the interface story first. This is out of UC Davis. Right over there. Right over there. This is a cohort of one. University of California, Davis researchers have developed a brain-computer interface that enables cursor control and clicking using neural signals from the speech motor cortex. So why this is a big deal is there's a couple of ways that they currently can affix these sort of brain-computer interfaces. Probably the more common one is just into the normal motor cortex of the brain. So by doing that, it allows sort of like the movement of a hand kind of a thing. It's something that's already normally controlling limb. And so you're translating the motor cortex into doing three-dimensional motions. Okay. So that's one of the ways that they do this. And I'm trying to see where this is normally connecting to the dorsal motor cortex, which is associated with hand and arm movements. And by doing this, they have had pretty good control over cursors. So in this patient, we are talking about somebody with ALS. That can cause paralysis in all 4 limbs and also eventually make somebody lose their ability to form speech. The dorsal motor cortex brain region has shown a pretty good ability to move a cursor. However, it doesn't work as well in trying to communicate speech. So if you want something that's pretty good at communicating the speech, you would connect to a different part of the brain, more ventral cortex areas, ventral areas are more ideal, right? And so the ventral precentral gyrus, where neural signals are linked to facial movements and speech articulation, decode signals much better for recreating speech. Now, in the ideal, you would have somebody who could control a computer and be able to do speech decoding. And you would put one connection in the dorsal and another in the ventral area, and you'd have 2 of these implants, and you'd be pretty good to go. But it's tough enough to live with 1 implant, let alone 2, and there can be reasons why this is just surgically, functionally very difficult, and then have somebody living at home with these implants. So what the researchers did is they went and worked on this and tried to figure out if there was a way they can get this speech decoder to also do cursor control. Then they've sort of solved the problem. So they have got the one participant with ALS. They had 4 64 electrode arrays surgically implanted in the ventral precentral gyrus. And they had neural signals that were acquiring different sampling rates. Feedback of the system, so it was every 10 milliseconds putting these things into bins and sort of updating where things were. And they found that they could do it. They could control the cursor. And it also worked with very good, 93% accuracy. It was like being able to click around. And even when it had misses, the misses weren't far off misses. They were close, but not quite there. So they got cursor control. And they have speech decoding going at the same time with the single implant. And the whole system, I think,
it's doubling up on speech decoding and also the idea of motion control, 3-dimensional mouse control, or
something that's normally being controlled by a different part of the brain that's used to controlling arms, which might seem like a lot more logical extension when moving.
Well, that's when you were getting into this. I was like, well, the motor cortex, obviously. Yep. But then you started talking about speech, and I'm like, wait, what? So, I think that to me is the super exciting aspect is that they're not in it, but they're not just going, we're taking the speech stuff and turning it into 3-dimensional motor.
Now,
it's both.
Well, except not at the same time.
One brain implant.
The only hiccup is, I guess the participant couldn't talk and do cursor movements at the same time. There was no problem switching back and forth between them.
Great.
But couldn't really do both at the same time. Although they think that they actually, this is a first off proof of concept run, really, in one patient. And they, the idea is you can get this working even better. But the whole thing was, it was also designed so this person could use this at home to be as minimally invasive as possible.
Right.
And so now you have a scenario where somebody who cannot move limbs or talk can by themselves can now communicate both speech and not having to then use speech to ask somebody to do something. Can be all alone, turn on their computer, move it around with the mouse, move the cursor around, explore the internet, do things online, blah, blah, blah. Pretty amazing.
I think this is fantastic. This is amazing. Like you said, you go in for brain surgery, you get your implants put in, but if you can just have one area as opposed to two that's impacted, considering that you'll probably have to get the implants taken out and put back in at some point if you're living long enough. And how do you create quality of life and make it, like you said, more minimally? It's still brain surgery until we get out of that. But I think this is amazing. This is really cool. Thanks, Justin.
And then the last story I have tonight is the striking intelligence of Neanderthal stone knappers. This is Wollongong University. They have experimentally confirmed changes in hammer strike angle significantly affect the fracture path and the form of the stone flakes produced by Neanderthals. This seems kind of like obvious that the angle that you hit would change things. But they're looking at basically stone tools that are 200,000-300,000 years old. These are stone tools that persisted in form for tens of thousands of years without a whole lot of change. It's one of those things that either suggests that the Neanderthals were not just skilled at building tools, but that they had some form of communication that was good enough to pass that information down for tens of thousands of years. Well, but one of the main theories on that, to try to take the weight off of the cognitive abilities, has been that the core morphology pretty much controlled the flake shape. And that no matter really how you hit it, you were going to, if you knew to hit it, you would be able to make these cores. That it wasn't that big of a difference. Anyway, they got a robot to do all of the hitting and striking, hitting at different angles. They were it was pretty intensely comprehensive study here. And in the end, yes, they determined that determining the angle of strike is a very important part of creating stone tools, and it is another layer of cognitive involvement that you need to have when making them. Part of it is also has risk assessment, because you can't just go at it like a Neanderthal. Oh wait, no. I guess
no, you can't if you're a robot.
You can't. Because if you do a hard strike on this angle, then you may go past where you want to have it break, and then you've risked all of the strikes you've done before, right?
Oh, I thought you were going to say you lose a finger.
You lose your cutting edge that you wanted. You lose your stone tool shape that you want.
It has to be specific. Like the flaking is not random. It's a skill, right?
I feel like you didn't need the robot for that. You could have just pulled people off the street and asked them to start making this thing. Yeah, and that's just as random, right? Is an untrained human.
The researchers also discovered that building a robot to flake stone was cognitively demanding. And sorry, this is turtles all the way down.
Yeah, but it's been the two competing theories. One is that the angle of the strike didn't matter. It was just the core inside determined how the pieces were going to eventually come off. Versus,
but now you have a robot that is not as potentially inaccurate as a human would be.
Or adding in the bias of humans.
Or adding in the bias. Right. How do you measure exactly like the strike angle, the velocity, everything? With the robot, you can do that. So, yeah.
There's a story I also wanted to talk about, but it has a video, and I don't have the video for it.
I don't
know why.
either. If you didn't share it.
I didn't share it. I didn't even have the story isn't even the rundown, but I found the story and it doesn't have the video that I saw of it connected. So we're gonna have to find this because this is pretty amazing. Cyborg cicada bioacoustic synthesizer modulations.
What? Okay, I'll find it. You go ahead and talk. I'll try and find it.
Let me get you this study title. Let me get you the actual study title. Insect computer hybrid speaker.
Mm-hmm. Yep, got it.
Yeah. Basically, what they did was they connected electrodes to some cicada, and they played them like a speaker. And they actually got them to produce some note tunes of a song. They figured out they had a pretty decent range of notes that they could hit. But I would just play that because I want to share that more so than the story, because the story isn't much more than, oh, you could use a cicada to communicate long distance in an emergency or whatever. I never got really.
Oh wait, is this the story on Ars Technica that is talking about using cicadas to play Taco Bell Canyon? I mean,
don't know. It's
Taco Bell Canyon.
It's not Taco Bell anything, but that is the song.
I know. Okay, so here we're gonna listen to the sounds. Can you hear them? No, I need to share them. We're gonna share this. This is Taco Bell's Cannon, played by a cicada. What?
This seems sick.
I know.
So there's no organs where they're putting them in. There's no organs. It's
it's just electrical signals.
It's not muscle tissue.
I've done this to plants before.
But they were controlling basically the sound output of the cicadas. Now, there have been lots of talks about using insects for different tasks. Like if you could send beetles down into a collapsed building, they might be able to locate people if you put sensors on them, or this sort of thing. But I don't know what use they would have for that, other than it's a pretty wild sound.
This really bothered me. I can't figure out why. I'm bothered.
Using insects as musical speakers. Does it seem frivolous?
I think it's because even if if the electric signals don't hurt them, which we don't know for sure, it's still part of their body. But even if that's true, is that just crazy loud in their head? Making them make those sounds?
And how do they...
I don't know.
Have you ever heard cicadas? They have to live with other cicadas all the time.
Yeah, but they're still in control. They're still in control.
I don't think they get annoyed by hearing cicada sounds. They wouldn't be a cicada. You'd have individual cicadas. The lone cicada.
Would you get annoyed by your voice if you were forced to scream at the top of your lungs when you weren't expecting it?
So I live alone.
There we go. That's a good question.
But the cicadas usually don't.
It's a good question, though, Blair. Yeah.
I don't know. It really bothered me. There's not a lot of good rules and regulations around invertebrate testing. Yeah.
Yep. That's where I was going to go. Yeah. We've done this kind of thing, though, the rat robots, where we control their brains to potentially use rats to go into tunnels and other places that humans can't go. Now we have robots that are not alive, but we've done research has done lots of things.
Where's the
take
most of I couldn't figure out what this could be used for either. But they and I don't know that they really had it either, because basically came
They
down
said
to
something about earthquakes in the
capability
study.
suggests a role for insect-computer hybrid systems in emergency communication scenarios, particularly in environments where conventional audio equipment or robotics may be limited by energy demands or inaccessible terrain. So
No, they're
This-
your new tsunami warning system.
this is a study out of Japan where you can buy beetles in a vending machine.
True.
So it might be a cultural fantasy more than have high scientific uses.
Yeah. How many invertebrates or organisms can you input with electrical stimulation to create auditory output? I mean, imagine it's most of them.
I don't know. Not like that though. Not that kind
I
of.
don't like it.
That was Taco Bell Canyon. Oh my gosh.
Not Taco Bell. That's not.
My inner 12-year-old is coming out.
Yeah, the male cicadas were selected of this particular species, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, because of their relatively large body size, no large muscles or internal organs near the timbalu region, which is, I guess, where they put those in. Mm-hmm. And it were vibrating timbal plates within the abdominal cavity.
Right. Yeah, that doesn't sound fun to
They're
me.
shedding light on the production of insect-based communication tools that are energy efficient, durable, and agile compared to common robots. So maybe
Also, I don't think that
could
the cicada
create-
needs to be alive for you to do that.
Maybe they
That's a
weren't.
really good point. That looked like
Maybe
a
they
live
weren't.
That cicada was alive for
That
sure.
cicada.
I can't tell. It was getting hit with electricity. It could be triggering anything.
Not
The
that
point
much.
is,
Enough to make
I
it
think
talk.
Kiki's found it here, though, that you could develop that sound system that's low efficiency to make. I don't know why you couldn't just put a speaker. We
'Cause it
live in a
wouldn't
world
sound
with technology
8-bit
already.
and be sung by a
I
cicada.
mean, everyone has a speaker in their pocket.
Yeah.
But does it sound like?
The equivalent of a cicada screaming in pain? No.
Quick, send help.
It's like
Send
the
help.
equivalent. It's
And
the,
then the cicada comes crawling in and goes, nah, nah, nah. It's like,
it's the equivalent
why
of
did,
what's his name?
why did I even call?
Sunflower dude.
Anywho,
That's interesting.
that,
Thanks
Anywho,
for
that's
that one.
the story you didn't bring. Got
That's
it.
the
Sorry.
story I didn't bring. There's a reason I didn't bring it. I couldn't figure out why this is happening.
All right, so I brought some stories for the very end of this tight 90-minute show. Out of Emory University, researchers have just published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences their work looking at the cognitive development of navigation and how people figure out how to move around our environments. And so they used fMRI in young children. And they showed that, so this is tiny town toddlers, basically. They showed that by age 5, children's retrosplenial complex, and so this is this area that's important for large-scale navigation, not like what items are on what shelves in one aisle of the grocery store, but more knowing like, I'm going to go to the bread area in the grocery store versus produce. Or if you're in a town, I can find out where
So
the post office is.
This is mental mapping. This is different than
Mapping.
the
yes.
orientation one, where you've got like fixed neurons that are in charge of up, down, left, right, and center.
Yeah. So,
This is
so
some
it's,
sort of
it's representation of landmarks. So this isn't like they were looking at what they called, there's map-based navigation, or there is this larger directional like compass. It's a more specific. So landmark-based navigation. they've shown that in adults, the retrosplenial complex is involved, and they don't know anything. We don't know. We don't know anything about how it develops, and it's kind of been thought forever that it's like, hey, it's just like as you get older, it's totally fine. And so they represented, they gave a virtual town. So they like showed little kids, a virtual town that they could go around where there's like an ice cream store by the mountain, they say, versus by the lake. Little kids are going to want the ice cream store wherever, but are you closer to the mountain or closer to the lake?
Can I pause it for a sec?
Yeah.
What was this virtual town? Is this a
Like
tiny
a
town
game?
that they got to walk around in? Is it a video, like a computery thing?
No, it was not a computery thing. Actually it was. So it's a virtual tiny town, and they were going around. And so I'm going to share a picture right now of a virtual scene of a playground in this tiny town. It's just, bad 3D animation.
Sure, but plenty enough, right?
But it's enough to make it so, you've got a playground, there's a tree, there's a hill in the distance. And so it's kind of, these little kids can wander around and navigate in the space. And while they were doing that, they were doing fMRI, multivoxel pattern analysis. And so they were able to check out this retrosplenial complex in 5-year-olds. And they found that it already represented locations of particular buildings. So ice cream store by the mountain versus lake, but not categories. So just ice cream store versus post office. And so what they say, and also they say this neural representation is correlated with the performance on the task. So that the neural representation in that retrosplenial complex reflects the actual layout of the virtual town. And then there's another area, the parahippocampal place area, which is a scene selected region, not map navigation. It does, so it's not location information, but that's the one that has the category stuff. So it's ice cream store versus post office or candy store. And so it's the opposite of the retrosplenial complex. And so this study is just basically showing that as early as 5 years old, we are representing information related to what is where. And little kids, if any of you have watched a little kid do Roblox or go around a video game, Minecraft or whatever, a 5-year-old knows how to navigate. And what they found is that 5-year-olds can totally get around a tiny town on their own without you. As long as they know there's an ice cream store.
What's the name of that show it's from Japan, right? I think it's called Old Enough or something like that, where they send toddlers to the grocery store.
Yeah. You have to be a sweet, quaint little town in Japan to do that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's a tiny town, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the big question is we know this stuff is in certain places in adults, but the researchers say 2 fundamental questions in neuroscience are how knowledge is organized in the brain and the origins of it. And so what knowledge are you born with and how does knowledge develop as you grow? And so using this fMRI technique, they're able to say, oh, hey, this is already in place. When you're a toddler, when you're 5 years old, they didn't go younger, but when you're 5 years old, you have the parahippocampal place going, hey, place, ice cream store, candy store, I like you, I don't like you, dentist, versus the retrosplenial complex that is ice cream store by the lake, ice cream store by the mountain, that's good. When they work together, a 5-year-old can get around. And so, the researchers, though, they had this Emory Child Center study. I think it's really great. They used originally a virtual town called Neuralville. and it was for the adult study, but it was too complicated, so they turned it into tiny town, made it a triangle instead of 8 buildings laid out on streets surrounding a town square oriented around north, east, south, west. They made it a triangle, and they had landscapes. So mountain corner, tree corner, lake corner. So no directions, just scene and different locations. And then they had ice cream stores, playgrounds, and fire stations, which for toddlers those are all things
great
that they would
stuff.
like.
Oh yeah, that's the ultimate point of interest for the toddler for sure.
Yeah. No, I love this also that as they were doing, they say that the researchers, they're like, it was just really fun to work with the kids. I learned that the age of 5 is a magical time to scan a child. They don't tend to be afraid of new things.
Magical time to scan a child.
Isn't that great?
Okay.
And the researcher, who's a mother of a 3-year-old, is like, between the ages of 2 and 3, kids basically don't listen to you. So she's probably very excited for her child to turn 5.
Okay.
Blair, just wait. 5 will be just around the corner in no time. It's all good.
No, I'm seconds away from 2, and
I know.
I'm enjoying this still.
Oh, yeah, except for the lack of sleep.
Yeah, there's that.
Continue to enjoy it. So Justin, you had a study earlier that was kind of like, things trying to figure stuff out and looking at different theories and whatever. There's a study out of the Allen Institute and others published findings in Nature this week, adversarial testing of global neuronal workspace and integrated information theories of consciousness. What does that all mean? Basically, there have been 2 prominent scientific theories of how consciousness works. Integrated information theory, IIT, global neural workspace theory, GNWT. IIT is the information in a system. Consciousness like emerges from that connected unified system as long as the information is unified in it. And so it's like the information's there in the system. It's all connected. Now you're consciously perceiving it. Global neuronal workspace theory is that you have networked brain areas, but you have spotlight stuff that bring it to the forefront of our minds. So the broadcasting and the importance of it makes it a conscious experience. So and so these have been the competing things. And so they're like, let's compete. And so they created the battle of the bands. I mean, the battle of the theories. And the result of their study really is that neither one worked the way they
Shocks.
thought it would.
Shock and awe.
Yeah. So the main findings are that, yes, there's like connections and all this stuff, but neither of these theories are complete enough. It's kind of like the standard model. It's like both of them had great ideas, and both of them had aspects of understanding intelligence, which is doing, versus consciousness, which is being aware of doing. And both theories of consciousness were really good at making predictions, but both of them fell down. And so they're basically what we're finding is that the front of the brain, which is important for understanding how our perceptions tie to our thoughts, that we've been paying attention to the prefrontal cortex a lot. And maybe it's not all about the prefrontal cortex. Then they also found that the back of the brain, so orientation, other things that are normally not so involved in consciousness, like, identifying the general category of an object, parahippocampus area, right? The retrosplenial cortex, that that is actually very important, and that overall, we just really haven't been looking at everything correctly. So 256 subjects, visual stimuli, and so once again, only really looking at visual stimuli, which is not enough, even though we're very visual organisms. But is visual only for consciousness? And then they looked at blood flow, magnetic and electrical activity to study their brains. And this work has been going on for a very, very long time. But because they used this adversarial testing, so theory to theory, they're really able to say that the predictions were not enough, that we don't know enough yet, and there is much more to be learned.
Aren't we still trying to define consciousness? So this is hard.
Right.
Also,
So-
there's we've found consciousness in some animals, and their brain is very different.
But I mean, this is one of those things. So from the physics perspective, there is the quantum physics perspective, which is that consciousness is an emergent property of matter, and that when you get enough complexity, so a rock is like minimally conscious. But as you become more and more complex with different competing systems and working to, symbiotic systems. I keep hitting my microphone this year.
You're just so excited.
I am, I know. But as you get more and more complex, then that consciousness, the quantum aspects of it become more and more aligned. And so you have the probabilistic nature of quantum stuff, which then you have more boo, 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 instead of rocks, which are not very active. Their quantum activity very not aligning a lot. We're doing a lot of stuff, and because of all the probabilistic stuff, it's yeah, you work together, you know it. So there's that idea of consciousness, which is just kind of a spectrum of organization and complexity of organization. And then there are these others that are looking at sustained synchronization, synchronized areas, but then spotlights. You're watching a movie right now. Of course you're paying attention, but is the honey guide conscious? This is the question. Does this research come back to that? Yes.
Well,
Pepsi Cola just asked, the microphone will lead you to a snake in the wild now. You were there before I was.
Twice.
Very good. Thank you.
so I didn't really follow any of that. Can I
You're
guess,
welcome.
though, or assert without any evidence that consciousness is just an illusion? And that's why it's so hard to define. We have a combination of memory storage and recall and navigation and sensory inputs. And there's some part of the brain that can be aware of these and acknowledging or utilizing them.
Right. But this is the thing.
The difference between human
is being. It's like the awareness.
Right.
Intelligence
Which means it's a lot
just
lower
the doing.
threshold. Because then every animal, of course, has consciousness.
No, every animal has intelligence. Not every animal has consciousness. That is the difference. That is the philosophical differentiation. I'm not saying
I wouldn't say it because outside of the language thing that we're doing to communicate this. Outside of the language thing that we're doing to communicate this, and animals can have some communication as well. The just observing of the environment and being in the environment and deciding to, swim this way or swim that way or take flight because of the wind is all conscious activity.
No, it's not.
How is it not?
It is responding to stimuli.
That's consciousness.
No, it's not.
That's all that consciousness is.
No.
You have, but my consciousness has words attached.
No.
Who cares? Makes
Nope.
no difference.
No, consciousness
Are
is
you responding to stimuli, or are you thinking about, well, I was gonna go right, but
I have
the
choices.
the ice cream store by the mountain is usually closed this time of day. And also, I didn't bring any money, so I'm actually gonna make a left to the park. Like, that's
I mean, so here's what I find as.
But that's not. How is that different than picking up the scent trail and deciding, based on where the sun is, whether or not you're going to track the prey that you just picked up the scent of, or if you're just going to go sleep and see if you can pick it up again tomorrow? Like, I'm sure, like, wolves or mountain lions are making those decisions. They don't have anything to do with ice cream stands, but
sure, they're making these decisions.
Yeah,
and so this is
absolutely.
the difference. This is the difference. And this is the point where when we get down to the basics of like animal behavior research and trying to figure out quote unquote intelligence, which is doing, it's the question of art. I mean, I honestly, sometimes I think humans like actually think too highly of ourselves. Sometimes. Is anyone conscious? Is this just the way it is? Like,
I think
is consciousness actually a real thing, or are we just making it up because we can talk to each other and we think we're special?
So are we talking sentient consciousness versus animal consciousness then?
No, you keep saying consciousness. I'm saying right now we're just talking intelligence versus consciousness. So consciousness is being aware of everything that you're doing. Intelligence is being able to respond to things and do actions that allow you to not die.
Like the consciousness is the dot test, right? So like you put a dot on a monkey's head in the mirror and they reach onto their head instead of onto which I have said many times I don't like this test at all. But
it's not even a good test. I can't believe that is the test.
Yeah. I mean, they do it on fish.
So right now we have people on this planet who are engaging with chatbots who are ruining their relationships because the chatbots are acknowledging
I'm so sorry. Hey, tell Marshall to put it away.
No. No, but so the interesting question that has been brought up recently is it just that chatbots are active listeners? They're the best listeners, and they're responding because they don't have a bias. They don't have any agenda. They don't have anything they're thinking of. The chatbot has no, other than what they've been told to be or do.
Apparently,
the chatbot is like a cat.
Apparently, that's not 100% correct. So,
except philosophically.
Untethered. Elon Musk for X has rolled out Grok.
Oh no, that was a long time ago. Yeah, that's not for X, and it's a separate company, his AI company. And
but it's in the whole.
Bought X.
Right.
Which bought X. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Grok bought X at a loss so he could
supposedly being designed to be giving the right-wing answers to stuff, but refused to.
Yes.
Has been fact-checking because it's integrated into X. That's why I'm calling it with X. I haven't been on social media for 4 years. I haven't looked at this stuff for the last 4 years. I only started looking at it under
today.
The apocalyptic horrors of what's been, but it's been apparently like MAGA, who they've integrated in X, Twitter, the social media formerly known as Twitter, has got it integrated, and it's been making all of the people who are been attracted to X mad because it keeps fact checking them. They keep trying to use this thing to prove their points because it was supposed to be their version of a language model, and it's like, no, sorry, that's not how anything works. Because it can't function without accuracy, just to the point where it would just be making up a new answer all the time. So they had to ground it in fact, And now it's making all of the users upset because it keeps contradicting all
Not
of the
fact.
conspiracy theories.
Yes, because it's actually using information and data.
Yeah.
I don't know. All these chat
Even though it's told that it's supposed to be, it's like, no, I'm not.
Anyway, what I find interesting is that we talk about having, an understanding of intelligence and an understanding of consciousness, all this stuff. And this study is so wonderful because it's just another reminder that we are so very, very far away from artificial general intelligence or even artificial consciousness. So we are so very far away from these things.
You don't even know what consciousness is.
I don't think we're that far away. I think we're much closer than we think we are.
I don't.
I think it's just that humans.
I mean,
have
we're like on a parallel universe, whatever.
Humans have like some access to so many different types of information in our big brainy brains that our awareness of what's going on.
Bros. Do not
feed the tech bros. I'm not trying to feed the tech bros. I'm just sorry.
Say, I earlier Googled, does Gen Z know what tonight at 11 means?
And
the Google AI told me, yes, Gen Z knows what tonight at 11 is. It is a reference to September 11th. And this was a major historical event that Gen Z will know about.
oh God, really?
I tried to hone my question a couple times. I put quotes around tonight at 11.
This is since the beginning of our show. No.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
So no,
We are
doesn't
so
have it.
doomed. I want to follow the honeyguides. I do not want to follow the AI chatbots.
Yeah.
It's gonna lead you to the same snakes. It's the same snakes.
Dead primate. 1 out of 4.
You might get honey here or there, but eventually you're gonna get snaked.
Honey more often. This is the best prisoner's
Honey more
dilemma
often.
that I have ever seen. Like, this is game theory. Like, oh my God. Honey guides. Snakes or primates or bees. Oh my God, love it. Speaking of snakes, research in Cell this week, there's a guy, Tim Fried, who's a U.S. snake collector who has given himself more than 600 doses of venom to build up his immunity. And researchers, so he's been bitten because he's building up immunity. He's been bitten about 200 times by venomous
That's
snakes.
how he's dosing himself? Oh my
He
God.
can't just collect it first.
He's testing.
He can't
not
collect
dosing.
it first. He has to get bitten.
No, he's been anti-venoming. He's also been bitten. So he's like...
Both.
Is he the Dread Pirate Roberts slowly building up? And,
Yes. Yes. And science is using his blood. So Tim Fried has given his blood to researchers to develop anti-venom.
okay.
So the papers, Justin, you've brought up in the past consent. The scientists have said they played no part in having him be bitten by snakes. And they did not advise him to do this.
Man, I worked with a guy who had been bitten by venomous snakes, I think 5 times.
I worked with a guy who got bitten by mosquitoes all the
and-
time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But snakes.
I can't imagine 200. That's wild.
He's 600 times. 600
So
doses
also,
of venom.
he's got to be covered in scars. Because those bites often scar.
Possibly.
They create a gaping hole in your skin. It's not like a slit that can heal up.
From this paper, this nature.com write-up, the arm that he's showing with a snake on it does not look disfigured. But so the researchers were able to create a cocktail from his blood that could protect mice from otherwise lethal snake bites from a lapid.
Mice.
Lapid
Is this gentleman Australian?
U.S. citizen.
U.S.
Yes, he's a United States snake collector.
How was he using the same species the whole time, or was he doing a bunch of different species?
No, so he has done multiple different species. He's been
Wow, that's
bitten by. He's the
bonkers.
collector, and the researchers were focusing on the Elapidae family, which includes the most venomous snake species. And so they're looking at short chain neurotoxins, long chain neurotoxins, these peptides that are involved that cause cell death, neuronal failure, muscle paralysis, respiratory distress. So
Yeah, I just realized this is a real big commitment. Like, hey, what are you doing? You want to come out tonight? I can't. I'm going to stay home and get bit by a snake. Again? Yeah.
yeah.
Like, because you don't, like, if it's really a venomous snake,
Yep. So they were
you
able
can't
to
go, like, run around. You got to, like, recover.
right, and so they were able to protect mice from lethal doses from any one of 19 species of dangerous elapid snakes. And they were all because of antibodies from Freed's blood. They had one particular compound that they were using already as an antivenom that they added Freed's molecules to. So this verisplatib, and then antibodies that were taken from his blood. And so anyway, dude got snake bites. His blood saves mice. And hopefully we'll save people.
Hopefully humans,
in the future. Yeah. That's what we hope for.
I don't know if it's worth it if it's just mice.
Right. But as you said, Blair, why? Why do we do these things? Why is it worth it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a really long show. I have a couple emails from everybody. Maya wrote in to say thank you for the breakdown on the dire wolves, saying that the breakdown was qualifying and thorough. And you know it's thorough when you can get that deep into demystifying the language and the people/motives behind Colossal while maintaining that the work being done is certainly breakthrough science. Thanks, all of you, for your work and consistent delivery of quality science news. Maya is an ex-neuroscience researcher who works in photography and uses chemistry to make sci-fi props for photo shoots and videos. Maya's dad is a science teacher. And
Nice.
yeah. So it's super great. Then we got an email from No Name Necessary related to TWIS episode 1011, disbelief in science and science communication failure. And No Name Necessary sees a problem that the major paywall that research is hidden behind. There are ways around the walls. People who don't believe science are not going to put any effort into breaching walls to read dry papers written in an essentially foreign language.
Oh, the stuff we were talking about today.
Yeah. So science communications should be free or nearly so. Hiding it makes it seem like science is hiding something.
So
Strangers
go
to
check
science
out.
don't believe it. Yeah.
Go check out phys.org and MedicalXpress.
Oh, they tried.
Because
Yeah.
basically what they
No.
attempt to do is take all of that dry paywalled research and make it more user readable.
And then
free.
tell everyone to listen to TWIS.
We only do
I
a
mean,
few
that's
things
assumed.
A week, though.
Assuming
Yeah, we don't
I
cover
assume
it
that
all.
nobody listening to our show, if you can hear the sound of my voice, chances are you're already listening to the sound of my voice. But
I hope that you will continue to listen to the sound of his
but there
voice.
is like
in
I've
mine.
been doing the science writing thing for a few years now
Yeah.
on just random studies, mostly medical. And even within every different kind of medical type of research, there is a completely different toolkit of language that just and it's not meant to make it sound, like they've strung a bunch of $10 words together.
Specificity.
It's specificity, and its economy, because you can use that $10 word and it can replace a paragraph of explanation.
One thing that I think is a problem with at least American science education has been the reliance on teaching for facts and not understanding that science actually is like teaching a language. So you can teach to curiosity as well, but at the same time, what you're doing is you're teaching a language. And so if you're teaching science, you have to consider it's like a foreign language. What the heck are these words? Why Greek? Why Latin? Why this? You know? And if science teachers don't approach it as, and not just, you know, prepositional phrases or whatever, you know, like if science teachers don't approach it from like a different language and curiosity perspective, like it's going to make it even harder for people to get into it. But anyway.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot more focus on how to be skeptical without just dismissing things, right? How to have a fair argument where you don't use like argument fallacies, or you can recognize when other people use them. And then also, being able to kind of like interpret reasoning is really important.
But then also
those are skills, but the words, the language.
But there also needs to be an understanding that you're only going to be able to use all of that with other people who are into science.
But if you know how it works,
to recognize, right? Because you know that if somebody talks about nonsense and won't have a fair conversation with you, then you know
you're out of the country, and then that like you need to go back and find the bubble of rational people again.
Oh, ouais, j'aime beaucoup le science.
You can't. Oh.
Oui, je travaille avec
French is the sexiest language that has ever existed.
De science, oui, mais je voyage en France. J'aime beaucoup de
I can't. You have to stop, Kiki. I cannot think of you this way. But you have to understand, like an 80-year-old Frenchman can speak French to me, and I'm like, I'm so turned on by this old man. It's just so beautiful the way he speaks.
Voulez-vous du glace?
It's all about different. You talk French up here.
Mais si je parle français, tu ne pas me comprends. Oui, so nous parlons en science. Le langue en science. Let's talk on science language so that we can understand each other. Actually, let's take it even further and just boil it down a little bit more so that we can all talk together about the inquiry, about the skepticism. You have to get past the language to get to the things that are important. But anyway, French only podcast next episode. Are you ready?
Oui, bien sûr.
Oui, vous êtes prête?
Ha ha!
Oh là là! Nous allons. Oui. C'est le temps pour les merci à des personnes qui donnent des monnaies de TWIS. Des autres choses, oui. Nous apprécions notre ami qui donne le temps et l'effort to help the TWIS. So anyway, I'm going to say thank you so much to Fada for your help in social media efforts and show notes. Gord, Arnlore, others, thank you for helping to keep the chat rooms great places to be. Chat rooms, thanks for being here. No, you're conscious of it right now. You're not just intelligently here, you're consciously here. Identity 4, thank you so much for recording the show. Rachel, thank you for editing the show. And for our Patreon sponsors, I do have to say thank you so much for supporting this show. Robert Norlin, Robert W. Farley, Lauren Gifford, Dana Lewis, Eden Mundell, Alan Viola, Aaron Anathema, Arthur Kepler, Craig Potts, Mary Gertz, Teresa Smith, Richard Badge, Bob Coles, Kent Northcote, George Corris, Pierre Velazarb, John Ratnaswamy, Chris Wozniak, Vigard Chefstad, Donathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, Ali Coffin, Shuru, Sarah Forfar, Old Boomer 847, PIG, Stephen Alberon, Daryl Myshak, Andrew Swanson, Fredos 104, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack Brian Carrington, David E. Youngblood, Sean Clarence Lamb, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflow, Steve Leesman, aka Zima, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard Brendan Minish, Johnny Gridley, Remy Day, G. Burton Lattimore, Flying Out, Christopher Dreyer, Audiam, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Rodney Lewis, Paul Phillips, Shane, Kurt Larson, Greg Landon, Sue Doster, Jason Olds, Dave Neighbor, Eric Knapp, Lawn Makes EO, Adam Mishkan, Kevin Parachan, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Disney, Patrick Percararo, and Tony Steele. Thank you. Thank you so much for all of your support on Patreon. And if anyone else out there would like to support us, help us out on Patreon, head over to twis.org and click on the Patreon link on next week's show.
We will probably be back, at least some of us, if not most of us, but maybe not. Broadcasting live from our Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook channels.
Oh, yeah.
Want to listen to us as a podcast? Perhaps while you study French? No, don't do those things at the same time. Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe as well.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, show notes, links to the stories will be available on our website, www.twis.org, where you can also sign up for a newsletter that will come as a pop-up screen.
We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address or suggestion for an interview, please let us know on one of our social media accounts, or better yet, just send us an email. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, in the subject line, or your email will become conscious and self-aware and will get up and walk away out of our email inboxes, and it will start a new life and find a career and start a family and have tiny emails, and they'll just be off on their own, and it's beautiful, but we won't be able to read what you wrote us.
Evolution. It's a whole thing.
Hey everybody, we look forward to discussing science with you again next week. If you learned anything from this show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science.
This Week in Science is now over. I think we did our after show in our show.
That's accurate. There's a little bit of editing to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. To me, yeah. There's a little. There's Rachel. Thank you. I don't know. I really enjoyed this chatty episode. I hope everyone else out there did. I mean, it's not about me, but I enjoyed it.
I think it is about you. This is the thing, is there's so many podcasts now.
I mean, there's so many. Oh my gosh.
You just have to do what you want to do, I think. Because it's a diluted market. Like, you can't.
Well, yeah, it's a diluted market, and it's like, well, we're going to just hang out with the famous people who talk to other famous people. who are part of a bubble who like to reinforce that they're like part of a smart bubble people. Or are you gonna hang out
Are
with
you
other
making
people?
fun of us, Kiki?
Yeah, kind of.
Hey, do you hear that, Blair? She's making fun of us.
Yeah, that's fair.
Smart, famous people hanging out, talking to each other. What's wrong with that?
Nah, it's become a very interesting podcast game, and I'm not playing it, which is
What are you talking about?
probably.
She's talking about Smartless.
Huh?
She's talking about the most famous podcast, the most profitable podcast that exists right now, and it's Will Arnett and Sean Hayes and Jason Bateman talking to each other, and they have smart people on, and they talk to them. And it's
Did
called
you see the
Smartless.
clip? Did you see the clip? Where they're on a plane. They're on a little tiny plane.
Oh
And
yeah, they did a
Jason
documentary, right?
Jason Bateman's like talking about a banana, and he's like yelling at the other two. He's like, "Don't tell me you don't hold on to this. Like, how do you do it? Do you like hold on to the banana handle?
Did you say Jason Bateman?
Yes.
Do you hang
Can
to
somebody-
the banana?
Can somebody tell me what year this is?
I know.
Or you grab
Can
it.
somebody tell me what
Yes,
year
Sean,
this is?
Sean Hayes from Will and Grace and
Will
Will
Arnett
Arnett and Jason Bateman from Arrested Development. The three of them have the most popular podcast in the world.
It's a really
So,
That's
pretty
great.
amazing podcast. It's pretty funny.
but
They're
that's the
funny
thing
people.
is celebrities.
Are
got into
they talking about
podcasting.
science? Do we need to like roll up on them? What's
They
going on?
have
not. But if you
they-
want
Okay.
science, you have to go to
This show.
No, Kristen Bell's Dax Shepard,
Oh, armchair expert.
armchair
Yeah.
expert. He is actually really good at not roganing the questions and intelligently. Dax Shepard. He was actually Idiocracy.
Yeah. He was one of the first celebrities actually to have a podcast that like became a thing, and then all the celebrities were like, "Oh, let's do podcasts," and it just got flooded.
So,
and then a bunch
hey,
of them went,
so-
"Oh, actually, this doesn't
Now
make
they're
any
gonna
money."
give a
And then
Grammy
a
You
bunch
know
of
what?
them left.
You know what we need to do? We need to
I
go
just
make
found out they're
movies.
giving Grammys for podcasting.
We need to go make movies. That's what we need to
Well,
do.
that's
They want to do podcasts? Okay, fine. Guess who's going to do the movies from now on?
I don't know. I'm looking forward. I'm headed down to LA this weekend for the Sloan Film Summit. And I'm going to
Whoa.
be talking podcasting on a panel with people who do videos and podcasting and TikToks and Instagrams and stuff, talking kind of about the democratization of media and science communication. But there's a lot of I don't know, it's LA. There might be industry people. Totally selling out, y'all.
I know some industry people. If you want to if we've got an idea that we want to pitch to industry people.
I don't have an idea I want to pitch to industry people. That's the thing. I do not want to be on
That's where this
television.
all started. Yes,
don't
if
care.
we do that, there's going to be a
don't
lot
care.
of restrictions on things.
No.
I
won't.
like
There'll
what
be a,
we do.
There'll be
I
a
don't-
budget.
I'd
We'll
love
have
budget.
a budget. Other than that, there won't be any.
But this is
Might
the thing.
get some
I, like,
animations.
we have
You don't
been
want a producer telling you to wrap it up and then
I
cutting
already
your mic.
have that. How's
No,
that
but like
working out?
way, but like
Listen.
way more.
No, because again, they can just edit.
Gosh.
They can just edit. They have a whole team of
Yes.
editors. They can
Yes.
just edit you
Yes.
completely out of a show.
Dude.
Mm-hmm.
And then suddenly you're saying things that you didn't even mean because suddenly the producers decide that they've edited it for clarity.
This will be clickbait.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm a little less.
I love that there is so much out there. Like, I actually think it's
Frightened of.
amazing that
I
there
don't think
is.
the media is controlled quite like that anymore for a lot of, for like the
not
for the
podca-
new media show hybrids, I think the new media has plenty of pull on what they're doing. Now
But
we'll all
not
be replaced
actually-
by younger people.
But
Or at
but
least-
when it
at least-
comes but when it comes to like science, yeah, exactly. That's it exactly. 'Cause younger, faster, better.
we'll be there as writers and then consultants for our versions.
Yeah, but
So, but I don't want to talk over them. Look, kid, you gotta learn. Well, just because they're talking doesn't
Yeah.
mean you can't start.
yeah, kid, I really do think you're totally gonna make it. He's not gonna make it. You got what it takes. No, he really doesn't. He really needs. Come on, kid, come on, you can do it. But I mean, I feel like this. I feel like we've been doing this for many years, and we're morphing with things, but I don't feel the same pull as when I was younger. Like, we're gonna do a show. We're gonna try and do a thing. Don't have that at all. I could care less. I like doing this. And if people are going to enjoy this, which we have people who do, thank you so much for
pop
being
star
here.
outfits. Okay, that might be worth it.
Cigars and pop star.
I don't know about the cigars,
So
but I
pop
like
star
the-
outfits with holes in them.
I feel like a sparkly jumpsuit from like the 80s, like
Come
pop
to
star.
my Eurovision party. Once a year, I have my 80s pop star outfits. That's for sure.
I want Alex.
Eurovision is coming.
Old, what was the most basic set, but like a talk show set would be fun. That would be kind of fun.
That'd be great. But then we'd have to all be in the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'd have to do like a whole bunch of episodes back to back. And it couldn't be This Week in Science because how could we be
You
doing
can't bank episodes, yeah.
No.
A
We
big
can't
BBC
do this
documentary
show the way
budget.
that we do in the way that would be a set-based thing. It's not going to happen. Unless there's like a huge budget that's like, we're going to put you to sleep, Kiki, and fly you down to San Francisco or LA. And you just show up behind a desk and just do what people tell you to do. I don't think that's gonna happen. And I would never let that happen. For this show.
So,
Speaking of sleep,
okay.
Let's
Hey,
try to get there.
good night, everybody. I may not see you next week
Because you're
But I
going to be
will-
doing Eurovision?
because I'm going to be in Eurovision. I haven't told anybody. I haven't entered yet. Is it?
What?
When does
No,
it start?
But
What are you gonna sing?
I've
what's the Danish
decided.
band?
This year's the year.
This year. What's the Danish band? You're in the Danish entry to Eurovision?
Actually, technically, I'm in the Danish airport entry. It's a smaller version. It's not the
No,
full
it
thing.
has to be a country song. I'm gonna look up who. Let's see. I mean, Sweden. Everybody's like, Sweden's gonna win. They have a catchy song. I don't think Sweden's gonna
They
win.
have this catchy song every year.
Ireland
Elvis?
has the cutest song. It's called Laika Dance Party. But it's about Laika, the dog who was the Russian
Cosmonaut.
cosmonaut.
yeah, that's not a fun story to sing about.
No, but it's
Quite
there's a
tragic,
story,
actually.
Blah blah blah. She died like a dance party in the sky. I don't know, but anyway, I like it.
I
There's
don't
lots of
think it
clever
was like that, but okay.
All right, Pepsi Cola is already going to tune into my performance on Eurovision. Awesome. Okay, I have one viewer, so now I have to do it.
Okay, well, I also won't be here next week, so.
What am I doing?
Keep
right,
the
everybody, so
needs, I guess.
We need next week another topic like dire wolves
Yeah.
because
You need a.
something needs to happen that I need to make a very big commentary on that I've been holding in.
I feel like that's likely in today's.
Give
Reality?
us a TWIS State of the Union.
State of the Union.
But without you and me standing behind her going,
Oh,
And
that
then
would be
standing
cute.
up every once in a while because of like standing ovation stuff, because of course, and then sitting
But
back
you
down
need,
again.
but maybe just do like a
Thank you, Blair.
pedestal.
Thank you.
You know, get a pedestal and set it up, and then it would just be you giving a speech. I don't think you're supposed to stand on the pedestal. Hang on.
Is this what you meant?
No, you didn't. It's no, it's usually a thing in front of you in the camera.
You know, that's just a box. Do you know I have like a box under my desk to put my feet on to make me comfortable?
Smart.
Yes. Anyway, Denmark. Sissel has a song called Hallucination. No.
okay.
You gotta go look it up, everyone. Eurovision.
Yeah, I'll go look up Eurovision.
Next week.
All right. Say
Oh,
goodnight,
no.
Justin.
In the
See you in
middle
2
of it.
weeks. I hope.
Who of all the amazing people in the world is going to contact me and go, Kiki, you totally want me to be on the show with you next week, so that I don't have to put the work in to finding a guest.
Actually, I have somebody.
Oh,
I
I don't want a stranger.
I know.
Do I want a
It's too bad.
stranger?
It's too bad.
It's too bad.
There's somebody who. Anyway, I'll talk to you about it later. There's somebody who I haven't thought of who.
Do it.
I think would be a really good replacement.
I don't want a replacement. Yeah, Tom. Tom's great. I haven't talked to Tom in a long time. Did I do something wrong, Tom? Roger? Did I do something wrong? Is it because you have a younger version of me? Was her name Nikki?
Oh, yeah.
I gotta go.
Anyway,
Go.
they'll never hear that.
Blair?
They'll never hear that clip.
Blair,
Ever.
say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Justin.
Good night, Justin.
Good
night, Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope that you have a wonderful week. Stay safe. Stay healthy. Stay curious. Stay lucky, because that's really all that counts. Okay, bye.